So, I've been thinking of this one example um, that addresses sort of relativity and how important the law of conservation is in materialism, in my understanding of materialism. Okay, so imagine you're on a big plane. Your world or place you reside is this huge level surface, and it's spinning, right? It's spinning. And if you were in some creature at a greater scale, you could see it spinning, but we're like little ants. We're on it. Plus, we can be very far away from the center of the spin, and so we're really only moving, in a very much of a straight line. And even though it's at a very high speed, we don't necessarily feel much of a pull. Throw out. Or whatever. Don't try to quote me on the whole centripetal force thing. Um, but anyway, so now I use a spinning example because spinning is interesting in relativity. People talk about all of these concepts like nothing that we've talked about for thousands of years, but a spinning thing uh, is an interesting concept, just in an idealization. Because spinning things don't subject themselves to relativity, right? You can tell what axis it's spinning around. Okay, it does not, of course, general relativity in this physics affects spinning thing, but the point is you can tell it's spinning. So rotational velocity, see, in rotation you have all the same kinds of things you have in physics. You have a rotational velocity, you have these rotational forces, torques and stuff. So all the equations look very similar, but it's this, it's not relative to rotational velocities. And a material reason you can imagine why is because if you spin something fast enough, it'll break apart. How can it be relative? Of course you can tell. Um, and one reason is because spinning has to do with my way of interpreting is spinning has to do with multiple parts of a thing. And so, you know, it's, it's the interrelationship. It's the relativity of a whole group acting as one. And of course, there's this intersubjectivity between its parts, whether there's conscious parts or not. But anyway, I was thinking now, you could pretend the center of this world is anywhere. Say it's an infinite plane, just to be ideal about it, but it's spinning around a point. You could say the center of this universe, it's right here in my home where my generations have grown forever. Okay. And, and you can get away with that. Most all of the math, all your math, your maps rather, your north and south, they're all going to work out fine, okay? But if you start looking these energies and you look close enough, you will notice uh, that the world is not conserving energy, right? Because you're in this accelerating frame, and so if you pretend that that's a rest frame, um, you'll find that your laws of physics, there's discrepancies, right? And there's forces on things, but they're not conserved, and there's not clear transformations of why it comes and goes. But there's a pattern to it, right? Depending on where you are in this spinning plane. If you find the center of this plane, then and calculate all your math from there, you will you'll recognize that stuff is spinning, and the math will be explained. It's like with Ptolemy's version of the solar system. The planets don't just go in ellipses; they go in circles within circles. They spin around. Okay, you can do that. It's just that the physics, why are they moving backwards? What force is going on that planet making it go backwards? And to explain that, then, the laws of physics don't make sense because there's this inexplicable force that just suddenly comes and goes. But you can even backflip and probably explain all of that away with some convoluted system as well. But this is your clue, the fact that things aren't served and that there's no formula of transformation that you can find to explain the conservation, the connectivity between the conservation, then like that there's conservation of energy. You can't get those numbers right. They can't be consistent. You can't have conservation of a certain amount of energy because energy just comes and pushes on the planet out of nowhere to make it go into retrograde. Okay, and so this is the value. Even if the idea of conservation of things, the principle of conservation, that that things stay around, that stuff doesn't just spontaneously pop in or out of existence, you know even if that's just arbitrary, even if it's just a way of interpreting the world. The point is, it's a way that allows these, to find these logical fulcrums where we can understand, how the world is spinning, so to speak, how the world turns. So yeah, I was thinking I'd develop that a little bit.